Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, and welcome to this morning's A Different Perspective. I am so excited to be here with you this morning as I jump on my phone and see everybody that's on. So I haven't done this for a while, so I wanted to say hi to everybody that popped on that we are now live. So thank you guys. I always have sincere, gratitude for everything of our message getting across the world. I can honestly say the messages are heartwarming. I'm going to share one eventually that when we talk about relationships here soon about something that came across. So first of all, I just want to thank everybody constantly for liking and sharing. And this topic is something, people are making comments like crazy. Let me hear it go. There we go. So long story short is I have a lot of different things coming across because of the demands that you guys want to hear about that way. So thank you. Thank you for continuing to share those with us. And I will always try to deliver what you're looking for. Our team, our media team is working tirelessly on a regular basis to come up with different ideas. So we have some new things coming out besides A Different Perspective. Because once again, we're trying to meet the needs that you guys want to know, because I came up with something today that I believe at the end I'm going to share, and it's related to the practitioner program that we are developing. But there's something that came across my mind, and I'm going to share it at the end, and it relates to you guys. I can honestly tell you, everything that I've even developed in our clinics and our media and our videos and our team is based on your needs. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for always sharing what your needs are. So before we get started here, I want to thank everybody. We got new people in the studio today. We also have our manager from our Appleton office, Annie Vissers, in here today. So welcome, Annie. So she drove up here. So once again, I want to let you guys know that you guys are welcome to come and hang out with us. We have a great time here, pre and post. If you were just here, a minute before we went live broadcast, the music is so cranking you can't really even hear anybody talk. So we're getting all pumped up and ready to go for a great message. And that being said, I'm very excited for today because once again, I love when we post about what we're talking about and I watch all the comments come across. But in today's topic, I want to share with you, it's a little bit of an emotional topic for me. The majority of things that I speak about is actually a lot of female stuff. It relates from Christy's experience. But today is going to come a little bit from my experience. And I'm not talking about as a clinician. I'm talking about as a young boy. I'm talking about as a teenage boy. I'm still talking about as an adult today. So therefore, what I want to do is I want to go through this topic that is dear to my heart because it's personal. All right. So as we were watching, people make comments on when I posted this picture, I have ADHD and you can see the mother in the background. I can relate. As I sit here today, I almost want to apologize to my mother and my father, but obviously mothers take this harder than males do. Now, once again, there's a difference in parenting. Mothers take on more emotional burdens of their children than dads do. It's almost statistically across the board. I'm not saying there's not exceptions to that rule, but when children have issues, mothers take it the hardest. It's why when you see the comments on when I posted about this, some women were kind of fighting back and forth. You're saying, it's not real, it's real, my niece suffers from it, there's no such thing, this, and it's a cat fight, okay? And I'm okay with that. Just to let you guys know this, I'm gonna consistently remind this to you guys. As you guys know, I love the politics and the Constitution. I love the First Amendment. On my page, you're always allowed to have disagreements on there. I'm okay with disagreements. I disagree with most of the world, all right, and how things are looked at today. So I thank you for having that. Just always remember, be respectful to others' people's views. And have a discussion about it, because I believe having a discussion about it can help us all figure this stuff out. It's why I consistently call this A Different Perspective. It's why I actually try to present from a standpoint of being a mom, a dad, a husband, a wife, even a child itself. And this is how I can speak to you guys today, is because this was a little bit of my life. Let me change that. This was a significant part of my life, okay? Because if you understand, if you've seen when Ross and I did our Dr. Patrick Flynn show, we had both our mothers on there. And my mother was telling the story, and go back and watch it, about how they diagnosed me. And then Ross actually, for example, was diagnosed in a different way. He was medicated, I wasn't. You know, that there's a significant difference between both of us when it came to that, on how we, navigated through as children. Now, and when they said navigating through children doesn't mean it goes away as an adult. So that's where I want to kind of stay with this and say, well, what is it? Because there's a lot of people going, is it real? Is it not real? Well, let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. And let's see what kind of different perspective I can bring than our current system today. Because as I always say, because I have to say this, the amount of medicated children diagnosed with this continues to go up. I mean, a weird stat, but just Adderall alone, and I'm just trying to remember the exact numbers, but don't quote me exactly on this, but I'll give you a rough estimate from what I read. In 2011, roughly 50 million doses of Adderall were prescribed in 2011. That's a lot of psychological manipulation when it comes to people going through. So is it real? Is this fake? Is this made up? Does it actually have any criteria? Okay, so that's what we want to really hammer today. And I believe then, with a light bulb moment, which, believe it or not, was my life, I believe I'm going to bring a different perspective on this. And as you know, my different perspective now gets applied to hundreds of thousands of people across the world clinically. And then results follow. And I'm going to share that with you. So today is going to be a little bit more emotional. Today is going to be a little bit more opinionated. Let me say that. I'm going to share some opinions with you. And I will let you know it's an opinion. Because I'm going to let you know it's an opinion, so then if I ever give you a stat or statistic, it's very factual, but I'm going to give you some opinion due to the fact of, once again, my own personal relationship with this. So where do we start? Okay. Now, the reason why I always start with medical things, because it's a predominant thinking. Because the minute that somebody actually sees something go wrong with their child, they're going to research. They're going to ask a doc. Do you understand that the minute something goes on, they run to a doc? And I'm going to share at the end that that's probably one of the worst things you can do in healthcare today. Because there's a different way you have to look at healthcare, and I have a new phrase for us come at the end. Okay? Now, so we go to a doc. We get a diagnosis. The one thing that I do love about parents today, both men and women, is they will start to research. All right? They'll start to research significantly because they want to know what's going on. So let's see what the current medical thinking describes and why I can see from the perspective of people saying it's not real. And the perspective of people saying, no, you understand, my child is suffering. So let's look. So what is it? So it's defined and classified, diagnosed by the CDC. All right, so let's find their definitions and how they classify it. And then if they do go to a medical professional, what gives them the criteria to say you have ADHD. Now, if you look at the topic today, we talked about ADHD, ADD, and Aspergers. I'm going to distinguish between all three of them, and actually there's multiple psychological things that they classify as, but I wanted to bring them up because, once again, it's going to lead to other perspectives in different shows. So let's see what the CDC says about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. All right. Now, if you notice, once again, they kind of take the slash in the middle because, once again, if you take out the H, it's attention deficit disorder. So, but for the purposes of defining this, let's see what they call it. All right. So, if you want to, just type in ADHD CDC, and you can follow along with me as I read this, because this is just right off their website. So, of course, they kind of give it things, but let's read it. ADHD is one of the most common neurodevelopment disorders of childhood. Now, if you look, they highlight neurodevelopmental. That means you can touch on it. It's going to give you a definition. Disorder of childhood. Okay, they consider it the most common. Okay. Now, I do like this. Common does not mean normal. But here, it is usually first diagnosed in childhood and often lasts into adulthood. Children with ADHD may have trouble paying attention, controlling impulsive behavior, may act without thinking about what the result will be, or be overly active. Okay? The reason why I pause, because that can personally probably describe almost everybody on the planet. Okay? But let's go on. So I said, listen, let's click on this. Let's click on neurodevelopmental. Like you're on the computer, you click on neurodevelopmental. What does it say? What does neurodevelopmental mean? Because a lot of people say, I don't understand some of their wording. That's the cool thing about why I like to teach. Remember, the job of a teacher is taking something very complex and making it simple, so now you know how to apply it or think through it. All right? Neurodevelopmental, having to do with the way the brain grows and develops. Okay? So what they're saying, for example, is the brain, once again, with a neurodevelopmental disorder, isn't growing or developing properly. My question is then, how do they really know that? You know what I'm saying? Because what you're going to find out, they don't have much criteria to determine that. So now, once again, it's ADHD is the most common neurodevelopmental disorder. It defines it what it is. Okay, so what are the signs and symptoms? So let's say what leads people to take their child, what leads people to take a teacher to walk to a mother and say, I think he's going through certain things. All right, so let's see the criteria that they list for this. It is normal for children to have trouble focusing and behavior at one time or another. All right, well then, okay, so kind of agree with that. However, children with ADHD do not just grow out of these behaviors. The symptoms continue, can be severe, and can cause difficulty at school, at home, and with other friends. A child with ADHD might, here we go. I put this, might daydream a lot, forget or lose things a lot, squirm or fidget, talk too much, make careless mistakes or take unnecessary risks, have a hard time resisting temptation, have trouble taking turns, have difficulty getting along with others. Basically, everybody in the studio said, that's me. And we're all adults. See, everybody's kind of laughing about this right now, but then as you can see, you'll see even in the comments when we were actually talking about, they're saying, well, children suffer from this badly. Okay, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen. I'm saying, man, they're throwing a lot of general stuff that just being a human being is going to be. Okay? I can honestly tell you, this happens to me daily. This happens to almost every creative person I know daily. The only person that this doesn't really happen to is I don't know. Do you understand? So, okay, so there must be some deeper scientific things that they must be hiding from us to understand what this really is. All right? Causes. Okay? So, I love how they throw so many generalities out there. Causes. Scientists are studying causes, and risk factors in an effort to find better ways to manage and reduce the chances of persons having ADHD. That right there should scare you. Okay? Please do not call medicine health care, because it's not. Okay? It's managed care. Insurance is paid to manage you from your symptoms. Okay, because as they go through causes, if they truly know causes, why is it repetitive medication forever, no matter what happens? All right, the causes and risk factors of ADHD are unknown. So they even admit it, no idea. Well, once again, because they're throwing out some general things that majority of people in their life will go through from childhood to the day they die. Okay, and so therefore unknown. But current research shows that genetics play an important role. I love it. Do you guys get this? Like I said, I have a gene different perspective come out very quickly. But think about this. Everything that you always talk about, they always go right there. Why do they actually say genes? Because they actually have evidence for it? That is not true. Okay? They say genes because then they try to put it into a person that they have no control over what they go through, which is absolutely, if you understand genes, makes absolutely no sense. Because when people a doc says, well, it's a genetic factor, they don't say that you can have influence on your genes responding. They say what? It's out of your control. So therefore, we must manage the result of your bad genes, okay, which is absolutely ludicrous, and I'm going to prove that very scientifically, showing that makes no sense. None. That's not how genes work, okay? Recent studies linked twins with linked genes with ADHD, in addition to genetics. So we have no idea, but the one thing we have is genes. Scientists are studying other possible causes and risk factors, including brain injury, environmental exposure, alcohol and tobacco during pregnancy, premature birth weight, low birth weight. Now remember, causes are unknown, but this next paragraph should make you just about throw up. Research does not support the popularity held views that ADHD is caused by eating too much sugar, watching too much television, parenting, or social or environmental factors such as poverty and family chaos. I can't make this up. I can't make this up. See, because then what happens, believe it or not, what if it is a parenting issue? What if it is? Okay? Now, of course, many things, including these, might make symptoms worse, especially in certain people, but the evidence is not strong enough to conclude that they are the main causes of ADHD. Well, guess what? There's no evidence of genes. None. None whatsoever. So I love how they take anything that you could possibly have control over on the neurodevelopment disorder of ADHD. So from the people that said, listen, I don't really think it exists, let's see the medical diagnostic procedures that say it does exist, all right? So symptoms and diagnosis of it. So here we go. The people with ADHD show a persistent pattern of inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity that interferes with functions or development, all right? Inattention, 6 or more of these symptoms, 6 or more. Okay, here we go, so let's read them. It fails to give close attention to details in careless mistakes at school or work and activities. Well then, gosh darn it, every employee I have would actually classify under that, including Annie, our manager at Appleton, including Brandon, including Ryan, including all the people that work for me, including myself. All right, so we're all screwed on number 1. All right, now, often has trouble holding attention or task or play activities. Once again, every employee that I have, all across the United States. Let's keep going. Often does not seem to listen when spoken to directly. Man, my wife complains about that daily. You know what I'm saying? Everybody in the studio laughed. My wife probably watching and laughing too. But did you hear what I'm saying? I mean, if this is science and criteria, man, it's like they're throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks. Here we go. Often does not follow through on instruction and fails to finish schoolwork, chores, and duties. Well, then my daughters all classify this. They all classify as this because it's hard to get your kids to do homework because it's so enjoyable. Okay? So now, here we go. Has trouble organizing task activities, avoids, dislikes, or is reluctant to do tasks that require mental effort over a long period of time. Other lost things necessary to task activities. It's easily often distracted, is often forgetful in daily activities. And all you need is 6 of these. Why don't you just actually throw every person on this list? Every person. We all go through those things on a daily basis. I don't know anybody that doesn't. I really don't. And I employ a lot of people, a lot of different people. Male, female, young, old, everything. You understand? So I kind of go, this is one of the basic criteria. So let's look at hyperactivity. Often fidgets with or taps hands or feet or squirms. I'm doing that this whole broadcast. Okay, here we go. Often leaves seats in situations and remains seated is tough. Often runs about or climbs in situations where it's not appropriate. Or unable to play or take part in leisure activities. Is often on the go acting driven by a motor. Often talks excessively. All right, I can go on and on. So for you guys that said that it's made up, I kind of don't disagree. I don't. Because the criteria for this, once again, is actually, it's almost laughable. It really is. All right, so I understand this. Now, no on. I said, I agree with you. I didn't say that there wasn't a problem. I didn't say that there wasn't a problem at all. I said, for example, this is very common. And now, once again, some of these things can be exacerbated by a lot of things. So as I was going but here's what happens. So, okay, let's say that it actually exists, all right? Diagnosing it. Who diagnoses it? Once again, you go to some medical health professional. All right, often ADHD often lasts into adulthood. To diagnose adults, you gotta go and have to have only 5 symptoms needed. So the reduction amount of symptoms are needed in order to do it. They never say causals. They always say, here's what you're dealing with, so therefore, guess what? This is how we're going to manage it for the rest of your life into adulthood and beyond. Now, let's take a look. What's the difference between ADHD and ADD? Actually, nothing. There really isn't. What they do is this. They take away an ADD that doesn't involve constant movement or fidgeting. So the only difference between ADHD and ADD, the criteria is it doesn't involve constant movement and fidgeting. Okay, fidgeting. So they move less. So a person that's more sedentary, all right? So now, see, that's the confusing part, all right? Because I'm going, all right, let's say they're saying there is a neural development disorder that's all in the brain, and the brain is developing, and this is why this exists. All right, so docs, once you gave a diagnosis, so you gave a child an adult diagnosis, tell me, what is your care going forward? What is your plan going forward? What is your diagnostic criteria? They don't have any. They don't have any. There is none. So what science are you talking about? I still have not seen any whatsoever. None. Do you understand? People say, my doctor said. I don't care what your doctor said. Your doctor isn't doing research. Do you understand that? I actually read more research papers probably a month than most medical students did their whole career, and doctors. Because and that's why I say, show me the criteria. Show me what diagnostic tool that you can show that there is actually something going on with a neural development disorder. And they don't have anything. They don't, okay? And that's why they have to play the role of genetics. Because then they say, well, the dad had it and the son has it. And remember, and get this, who do you think is actually diagnosed more with ADHD? Girls or boys? Especially today. Boys, predominantly. Because the environment that they are in, especially in schools, is dominated by a female perspective. Schools are not made for boys. Schools are basically made for little girls, okay? Little compliant girls. So their environment alone is inconducive of them not going through what a child will. It's very sad. So we're now prescribing massive things because here's the treatment for it. Look it up. Here's the treatment for it. Medication, stimulants, non-stimulants, antidepressants. You know, we got Atomexine, we got Adderall, we got for stimulants, we got all these things. Now remember, and once again, and here's what happens. If you look at, for example, what they do, it says, well, what do some of these medications do? Well, it talks about, especially like a stimulant or a non-stimulant, what they're trying to do is they're trying to affect biochemistry. They're trying to affect biochemistry. All right? And they talk about neurotransmitters and what they can do, and it can change the brain like in norepinephrine and dopamine and serotonin. Okay, so I'm like, so you're going to give a mind-altering medication for actually what goes on. So I started to research this. I said, all right, if they have some neural development disorder, but now they're talking about serotonin, epinephrine, dopamine, norepinephrine, histamine, that's not neurodevelopmental, that's biochemical. That's biochemical. So then by the biochemistry, let's take a look at one of the non-stimulants. So we're talking a non-stimulant because Adderall is actually a combination of two stimulants, which, for example, that's why these kids that take it actually end up becoming very small and skinny, okay, and actually stunt their growth, and they become small in stature for the rest of their life because it speeds up development. It speeds up bone growth. It speeds up their bone structure. So they actually get development stimulated into adulthood too quickly, okay? And now what happens? They're small in stature. So now I started to look at one of these non-stimulants once again. So let's take a look at one of them, all right? This is one of the most prescribed, I know it's hard to say its name, atomoxetine, okay? They just make these words up all the time, I think, to actually confuse you. It's, let's just say, medication, all right? Now, so it's kind of funny. And it talks about that it's a review and its uses and attention deficit disorder. This is their idea of research. This is what they pass along to doctors saying, research says this. All right, as you know, I am obsessed with immunology and biochemistry. I want to know everything about how a medication works on a receptor, on a cell, on a gene, on anything that way. And one of the major non-stimulants that they give to children to change this for clinical effect, it says right here repeatedly in research, the mechanism, that means how it works, of this medication is unclear. If I could have you zoom in right there, unclear. But it is thought, I love this, so we assume, but it is thought to be related to its selective inhibition of presynaptic norepinephrine reuptake in the prefrontal cortex. We think. We have no idea. Do you understand they have absolutely no clue how these things work? None. None. It's not a joke. So I say, it's very effective. Well, crap. Just give them a sedative. Knock them out. You don't know how that really works either. So the idea is this. So they're giving things that are trying to manipulate the prefrontal cortex, but have no idea. Mechanism that actually doesn't stand, but they're calm. They're sitting. They're focused. No, they're not. Do you understand? Get this. I'm going to give you some multiple scenarios. I'm going to defend the people that say it's not real, and I'm going to defend the people that have to suffer with kids that go through this. So I'm going to tick off both of you, okay? So let me give you a disclaimer. If you're a sensitive person and you don't like to be criticized on parenting, please do not watch this any further. Please shut this off. Because I can tell you this. So as a clinician, you're saying that actually has helped children through this process, got them off their medication. Let's do this. So I had a scenario where a mother, once again, a mother came in, and once again, she was single mother of 3, and she believed that her 2 older sons actually had ADHD. The school teachers have confirmed it. They confirmed it. Their doctors have confirmed it. Okay, she also had a daughter. And it was interesting because all of a sudden they came into the office. And I'm like, okay, they actually want to see, what could be done and things like that. And no joke. So basically, the children, once again, understand this. They were in my waiting room being, a little uncontrollable. And for somebody that truly does suffer, it sees people on more of the autism spectrum, which I believe can't be controlled as far as like an adult's behavior or child's behavior. They were a little rambunctious, kind of disrespectful in the waiting room and stuff. And then obviously the mom's excuse was, well, they have ADHD. So therefore, they came back into the exam room, and it was interesting. I walked in the room, and the 2 boys were like basically squished together on a chair. They had an iPad, and they were playing a game. And literally, I'm like, okay. And the little girl was actually sitting there. With nothing and just kind of swinging her legs, on the bench. And all of a sudden, guess what happened? I'm like, so she's telling me that the kids are doing horrible at school. They can't focus. They can't do anything. They talk too much. All the criteria. Went to the doctor. Doctor talked to the teacher. Teacher confirmed that this kids need med. They need their behavior controlled. And I'm listening to the mom talk to me for 20 plus minutes, tell me what was going on. And the boys haven't said a peep yet. They haven't moved. They're just sitting there. I'm like going, and I'm looking at the mom, and she's just rambling and talking. I'm barely listening to her now, and I'm just watching these little boys. And I'm watching them communicate, and I'm watching them talk to each other. I'm watching them get excited and go, ooh, yeah, get this guy, and stuff this. So I said, ma'am, hold on one second. I went over to the boys. I pulled up a chair next to them. I actually became a little child like them, and I sat down. I actually snuggled into them, and I'm like, dudes, what's your plan? And they're like, and no joke, in great detail, in great focus, in great attention. The kids taught me more about that game in 5 minutes than I could ever do. To detail, focus, they never moved. They were kicking butt in it. I'm like going, all right, so what'd I do? I said, all right, boys, I need to take this iPad right now. What I did is I took the iPad. I sat at my desk. What do you think the boys started to do? Honestly, what do you think they started to do? They started to become boys. And they started to climb on things, which boys do. They started to talk, which boys do. The mom, within 2 minutes, was like, look, and she threw her hands up in frustration. And I'm like, and I let them. And I'm like, and I said, okay, keep on telling me what's at home, da, da, da. And I'm not joking. And I literally was like, okay, boys, here's what I need you to do. I need to examine one of you. So let's separate them now. I need to examine one of you. And I grabbed the iPad and I gave it to the other boy. And the boy became laser focused that whole time. okay? And during the exam, and I actually even made the exam go a little bit long for that one boy. It's not a joke. I was checking his reflexes, doing stuff, checking his GI, doing the exam that way. And literally, not a joke, he was starting to fidget. He was starting to get bored. He was starting to grab my stethoscope. He started to do this way. Things that boys do. Things that boys do. The whole time, believe it or not, the little girl was just kind of hanging out, and she was coloring on her coloring book, and she was just kind of chilling out, wasn't talking that much. Do you see what I'm saying? And so, literally, guess what happened? The other little boy never made a freaking peep. Okay? Said, okay. I switched back. I put him in front of the iPad. Wow. Laser focused again. Didn't hear a peep out of him. I think you guys know where I'm going with the story. I looked at the parents and I said, and I understand. And here, I get it. I get it. She's a single mom. I literally looked at her and said, what's their criteria? Their grades. You're basing a psychiatric medication on grades, on teachers, on school system, on a doctor's opinion with no diagnostic criteria whatsoever. Yet I just got your kids to focus and get rid of all those symptoms within understanding what they liked. Do you understand? Half the criteria that people actually are diagnosed with ADHD is literally boredom. Is literally boredom. Is literally no purpose in life. Is literally understanding and getting to their environment. Okay? Now, so all you guys that love that aspect said, Doc, that's right, it's a bunch of bull crap. Now I got to offend you guys that say it's a bunch of bull crap. And I'll talk about this personally. Because here's what happens. My mother literally sat me down, chatted with me, loved for me, cared for me, offered to buy anything I could to stay focused, from comics books to computer stuff to anything. And my skin still felt like it was crawling inside. My brain still felt like it was a pinball machine constantly inside, and I couldn't focus, and I couldn't do stuff, so I did anything that brought that feeling down, and sometimes those things were not productive in society. And it made it very difficult for my mother and other mothers to watch their child go through something that they have absolutely no control over. So is ADHD real? Maybe. All I know, for example, is it wasn't neurodevelopmental. Okay? There was something going on. And I'm like going, oh my goodness. So I keep on researching this. I'm like, well, maybe Adderall. Maybe the stimulants do something different. They don't. Okay? They still try to alter the biochemistry. Because here, if there is some success of what you're trying to achieve, well then, why didn't you check the biochemistry? Okay? Not being neurodevelopmental. And so it was interesting. So on both sides, I get it. And that's why I get kind of disgusted with what they say here. Research does not support the popularity views and cause of eating too much sugar and all these things and watching too much television and parenting and social environment. That's one of the biggest things. I can honestly tell you right now, I believe that over half these kids would not be diagnosed if their environment changed. Social and school environment. By far. By far. I mean, do me a favor, parents. Please do me a favor. Put yes or no. And I guarantee it's going to be predominantly no. How many of your kids can sit and do homework for hours on end without fidgeting, without getting up, without this? It's called being a darn child. To set a kid in school for 8 hours. Do you know what's really funny? I actually do this with kids all the time. All kids. Even your straight A kids. So what is your favorite subject? Do you know what kids' favorite subject is in school? Lunchtime, recess. Overwhelmingly, 90+% of the kids that I've ever chatted with talks about that. And you know what the parent says? And yes, here's a parenting issue. Well, she really likes math. I don't care. I just asked her what she liked. I asked her like he liked. Parenting? An issue? Yes. Environment? an issue? Yes. Are there other factors? Yes. Okay? And then I'm like, this is what they have to offer? Really? This is acceptable health care for kids on mind-altering drugs, and every one of those drugs. Stimulant, non-stimulant, antidepressant. Can anybody tell me one of the major side effects is? Suicide. Do you know what's a great statistic? Everyone, you guys are, people talk about gun control. What about psychiatric medication control? Because every one of those school shooters was taking it. Every one of them. It wasn't a freaking gun. It wasn't. It was a freaking psychiatric crazy kid that actually was on medication. That alters who they do. And that's why I'm sitting there going, and I'm not saying that some kids don't have issues. I'm going to show you where the issues come. I had issues. I had big time issues. I understand those kids. I understand going beyond just not being able to be focused even on things that you like. So personal to me, heck yes, big time. But this is acceptable as healthcare? Really? That's what we call healthcare? Is now putting kids some 50 million prescriptions of something that actually is known to create, it says it right on it, psychosis and suicide? Really? Honestly? That they have no idea what it does to the brain? None. Just as I told you, there's no research proving this exists. There's no research proving what it does. None. They're all assumptions and thoughts and ideas. But what they do is this. Look at your child focused. Your child became a zombie. The zombie apocalypse. Was it apocalypse? Yeah, I know people are obsessed with zombie movies. They're making them. They're creating them. We've lost the creativity of those kids. Do you really think if my brain would have been numbed, and thank God my mom and dad chose not to do it, that maybe I wouldn't have the ability to think and be creative to create what I did today? Maybe if I actually didn't have that rebellious spirit that actually said, I disagree with you even as the environment of school and everything like that I could get up and talk the way I do today and put myself in an environment saying, we're moving in the right direction, we're moving in the wrong direction, we're moving in a bad direction. Do you see what I'm saying? See, so that's why I say when I see this, I'm like, this is acceptable. And I said, guess what? So as a young man, because this is what led me to be a doc, Christy's story is monumental. It's now affected lives all over the world. I literally got a text from a doctor at 10:30 last night because some people use my material all the time and they don't give me credit. But it's kind of funny. It was a doc that was a marriage conference, and then they found out the pastor was from Green Bay. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. He uses my stuff. I gave him permission and stuff. So it's kind of funny. It's like, but it sounds just like you. Because why? Because I said, listen, my personal story actually does what? Actually shows that I had a little thinking going, well, wait, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm going through these things which are not right. I agree. But well, guess what? There has to be something biochemical, okay? So the approach, that's why I always call it the one-way approach. The approach is going in a totally wrong way. It's not neurodevelopmental. ADHD, if you want to actually list it, ADD is not neurodevelopmental. Now, I will say this. Autism, Asperger's, which is under the blanket of autism, there is some neurodevelopmental issues. That's why when I said ADHD, ADD, Asperger's, why did I include all three of them? Because there is some neurodevelopmental issue in the autism spectrum. I'll go through that in great detail at another different perspective. But ADHD and ADD are not, okay? I said this is the big thing. It's not neurodevelopmental, it's neurostimulatory. It's neurostimulatory. Now, what do I mean? Because here's what happens. All the research that they try to say that's this and it's serotonin, it's all things like that. Once again, I don't disagree with that. But what they do is they so classically look at one gear. That's why I always came up with my principles. This is where it actually all stemmed from. It stemmed from my personal behavior and my personal struggle that's saying, everybody's saying, he's a bad kid. He can't focus. He did this. And they kept on pointing to here, and guess what happens? And then they defined me as a juvenile delinquent. they defined my behavior as unacceptable in society. I think most people still do that today. Dr. Flynn, he doesn't follow the mold. That's okay, okay? And I said, wait. And then things start to transpire in my life, and I start to understand that, guess what? This is how it really works. They're so focused on a theory, an assumption that's neurodevelopmental with no evidence whatsoever. None. And you cannot find it. Go out and look for it. Everything that they tell you is based on uncertainty and assumptions. Then you can't say that's science, it's an idea. It's an idea, okay? But man, are you really gonna take something and give it to your kid that they have no idea what it does, yet some of the side effects are psychosis and actually suicide? I think that's crazy. So when you say, my doctor said medication is the best route, where do you determine that from? That's not healthcare. That's actually, you're not understanding this. That's why I believe it's so important to learn, okay? And so what I did is I'm going, here we go. Well, I started to think about it, that light bulb moment. Do you understand the biochemistry that they're talking about? Serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine. I started to think about it going, hold the phone. Do you understand that the majority of those that biochemistry actually isn't even really started there? That means that the majority of our serotonin, okay, let's do this. Please do me a favor in the comments, because I'm going to take a little sip of my kombucha and coffee and give you a second, because it's usually delayed by a couple seconds. And I want to see our media team everybody do this. Can anybody tell me where the majority, and I'm going to give an underestimate, because I like to always underestimate, because then what happens is they can never show a study that says this much compared to this much. But here's what happens. Serotonin itself, which they're trying to manipulate with all these medications, serotonin itself, can anybody tell me, please put in the comments, where the majority of your serotonin is produced in the body? And let me give you a hint, it's not in the brain. So I'm gonna take a little sip of my kombucha, and I'm gonna take a little sip of my coffee, and the first two people that get it correct, and judge the percentage. The first two people that get it correct is gonna get an I Disagree book, a book that's still selling all over the world like crazy. So do me a favor, I'm gonna take a little drink here. Where is it? And give me, and you don't just have to know where it is, and take a guess at the percentage. Most people, might not know this, but I'm gonna actually take a sip here. But the first two people that get it where it's mainly made of, I'm gonna actually give you a book. Do. Wait, Jeopardy's that slow. Yeah. I love my kombucha. I love my bulletproof coffee. Got some reishi mushroom in there this morning, as always. So, media team, all my wonderful people that continually work here, regardless of my craziness. What are some of the people saying? Good. See, you guys know this. It's basic biochemistry. The majority of our serotonin is produced in our GI. Because why? Because there's a lot of the same cells that produce this, because they're done and they're actually changed even by our foods. Hold the phone. Let's go back here. Really? Here we go, hold on. Really? Research does not support popular held views that ADHD is caused by eating too much sugar or diet or television or all stuff like this. You wonder why I get frustrated? Because here's what happens. I get frustrated because they don't even understand basic biochemistry. See, once again, that's why everything I teach seems so radical, because of what is really out there and how it works, and applied to clinical practice, they never can. Because they're trying to manipulate and manage, not find out real causes and not find out the effectiveness, because you would have control. And I'm going to tell you, and that's why I came up with a new phrase. So the idea is this. So I started to go, well, wait, if it's not produced the majority there, can we at least measure some of it? That's why I came up with the motto, we don't guess, what do? Test, okay? So therefore I said, well, can we actually, because the majority of them are made in the periphery, can we actually measure some of those amounts? And yes, you can. Mayo Clinic does it. Other labs do it. You can actually go on Mayo Clinic's website and actually get a test if you want. They're really expensive, okay? But here's what happens this. There's other labs that do this. I'm going to give you a clinical example of one of our new offices, all right? Thank you, Dr. Brooklyn, for your amazing care that you're giving down in the Burr Ridge, Chicago area. So this, you can see this test was just done on 9/10 this month. The child came in just before that. Here was an 8-year-old male. 8-year-old male, all right? Now, I know it's a little hard to see, but his serotonin was very low. This child was going through a lot of those psychiatric things, all right? And yes, and no joke, I even asked the doc, I guess the mom is awesome, I guess the parent is awesome, and they see their child suffering, all right? And I understand, and now they don't want to use medication because the mom did some research. See, stop listening to doctors and start learning. And you're going to find out that you don't want to do what they do. Because you know why? Because what they do is not controlled by the best care of the patient. It's based on management and money for the rest of their life. Pharmaceutical companies. So the doctor is saying, this is what I have to do. Here's a psychiatric medication. And parents are like going, and thank God because they're in that, people are going, nah, I don't want to do that anymore. Do you see him? So therefore, guess what? But here's the cool thing is this. As I told you guys before, when I did a little rant on Thursday, the body is so genius, it leaves clues. So here's what happened. Serotonin, epinephrine, stuff like that, low, so I understand that there could be some psychiatric focus, attention, mood disorders in that child. I have sympathy for this 8-year-old boy. You know why? Because I can almost put myself in his shoes. I'm very empathetic for moms that actually see their kids go through things that this child had no ability to focus. He doesn't want to look at an iPad. He can't do that. So is some of these things real? Yes. Is some of these things made up? Yes. So all you guys arguing on my Facebook page, real, not real, this like this, you're both right. You're both right. Because you're right. And a lot of it, it's made up. And a lot of it's not. Okay? Mine wasn't made up. Neither was this child. Because there was a clue. There's some excitatory neurotransmitters, excitatory to the brain, stimulatory, and histamine. Histamine was extremely high. Extremely high. Wait, histamine makes you get some inflammation and redness. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Histamine also is a neurotransmitter. See, the concept that a hormone only affects histamine thinks your nose and taking antihistamine and reduce the inflammation, there is a systemic all Swiss watch type of reaction from your big toe to your brain. That's why medicine will never get it. That's why their thinking will never get it, because there's a connection between every organ, every system. Do you understand? If you get a sliver, it affects your brain. It affects your brain. So, but being a clinician that says, sympathy, compassion, understanding for this mother and this family, just like Dr. Brooklyn, heart of gold, guess what happened? Then you start to dig deep because the body leaves clues. Well, what can trigger? What can stimulate histamine in the body? And guess what happened? The child had an IgE anaphylactic response +2 to corn and had no idea. Now watch this. So before the mother started to notice things, she started doing research. So God bless you, your mom. You know, as I said, God bless you moms that are doing this. You understand? It's the ones that actually just listen to the doctors. I know it sounds funny. I feel sorry for you because you're programmed. And then if you defend and say, my doctor says, I actually lose respect for you. Because you've put your child in the whole hands of somebody that may have no clue what they're doing. So the idea is this. So this mom said, I'm going to start to change their diet. And actually what happens is this, saw very little to no change. I mean, a little bit, but nothing significant. All right? So what Dr. Brooklyn did, by understanding and going through her exam, we gave them a couple herbal things that the mom noticed a change in behavior, because it's not hard to change biochemistry even from an herb standpoint. But I've taught you guys. Those herbs and those nutritional things give you time to investigate what there's really triggering the body in the first place. So this lab just came back a week ago. And IgE of corn was elevated. She also had IgGs. But you know what the mother found out? When the mother went healthier, she went to organic corn chips. She went to xylitol sweeteners. She went to xylitol toothpaste. The reason I'm bringing this up, you say, Doc, you love xylitol. That's not really true. I don't like xylitol that's made from corn. Because just like any food company, when xylitol came out, true xylitol comes from birch bark. The majority of it, even in your sweeteners, in your foods, and in your toothpastes, is actually corn. And it could be non-GMO corn. So I'm not saying it's bad corn. It could be great organic corn. It could be the best corn raised on the planet, but it's still corn. And therefore, the mother started to look, her toothpaste, her other sweeteners were made with corn. They just stopped it. All they did was change to a different toothpaste. All they did was got rid of the corn chips and went towards some veggie tip. All they did. And Dr. Brooklyn called me and the mom said it was a change overnight. Overnight. And I sat there and Dr. Brooklyn and just warmed her heart because she has a heart of gold to help everybody, just like all our doctors do. Do you understand? Because we understand people suffer. We understand that sickness is all-time high. We understand that what moms and dads and people go through is devastating. You know what the future could have been for this child if this mom went to start learning? If she just would have listened? Now, once again, it was dramatic. But this wasn't the only stimulatory thing that this child had, because we also found out that they also have an infection in the GI. I can honestly tell you clinically, there's a young lady, and I think her mom's watching right now. She is now 18 years old. She's actually out in Hollywood becoming a movie star right now. She came to me at 8 years old because they wanted to do shock therapy to her brain because they already tried all the medical stuff. And a person said, well, maybe you should try this guy, Dr. Flynn. Do you understand? She had a bacterial overgrowth in her GI. And all we did was actually start to change her lifestyle. The mother took responsibility and changed her own health care, did self-care with the mom. We gave her things from silver and some other things to kill it off. And it was particularly, you can be very particular about what affects that bacteria. And psychologically, she became a very different person. I commented on her Instagram the other day. I did. I said, I'm proud of you. Great job. I hope you make it huge. She sent me a picture of, she said, baby, because she was only 8 years old, I'm not going to use her name. And all of a sudden she's like, and she goes, I couldn't be out here in California without what you did. What you did. That, to me, was worth all the criticism and all the hate mail that I get on a regular basis, because it changed the direction of her life. If they would have shock therapy her brain, if you think this doesn't exist today, you have your head in the sand. The amount of psychiatric things they do to people is barbaric. I've said this, just women healthcare alone is barbaric at what they do. So this young boy would have been on a psychiatric medication, and they just started with him. But you know what happens this? Put a pebble in your shoe right now and walk around all day long on it, and you tell me if you can sit. You tell me if you can focus. You tell me if you're not fidgeting. You tell me that you'll stay on task. You tell me that you won't be actually complaining. Because you have a pebble in your shoe that's massively aggravating, stimulating the brain, and it changes your behavior. So I want you to think about this. There are massive stimulants that change the biochemistry of your brain. That can be classified as ADHD. Once again, foods, infections, medications themselves. Some of the medications you take, even antibiotics and different things like that, actually can change brain function, can change biochemistry. Be careful. Understand these things are very serious. People take drugs and accept them like they're candy, like there's no damage to it. None. And I watched this. Here's the stupidity of Harvard doctors, and I'm going to use the perfect example. I'm going to use, actually, and I want to meet this guy. He's actually a geneticist, actually, from Harvard. His name is David Sinclair. He talks about the safety of medication just because people have taken a long period of time and haven't died. That's not safety, doc. That's not safety. Because you even said you take metformin and it destroys your gut. That's not safety. Watch his videos. And I like the way he talks about genes because he says genes change all the time. But then understand, look at the body like a Swiss watch, not like a one gear and one little thing. Don't say those things because people think they're right and he's wrong. They're all wrong that way. You can't tell me your GI is torn up by metformin, but it's safe. No, you guys consider safe if you don't die or you cannot correlate directly with it that way. They don't even know the mechanism of these psychiatric drugs. Yet every school shooter was taking them. Now, here we go. Heavy metal exposure. Heavy metal exposure. They even said, if you look at the definition, lead and other heavy metals. I'll let you guess where we can get that. See, they call it environmental, but what if they change your environment by injecting heavy metals into you? Tap water. Oh my goodness. Guys, I mean it sincerely. I don't sell filtration systems, but there are great companies out there that do. Tap water has so many chemicals in there that can affect your brain. Please do not drink in tap water. Please, if you live in the city, have a filter on your house. Have a filter on every things. Guys, not a joke. I am currently fighting to get chlorine out of waters. I'm currently fighting to get all these toxins out of waters. Why? Because it's poisonous. I want people not to live a poisoned life. Skincare. Guys, I'm talking even little boys. Don't give them crappy shampoos. Suave is not good for them. Do you understand? It's not. Toothpaste, lotions, anything for little boys or little girls. All right? Energy drinks. Oh my goodness. Do you understand that they even put a synthetic neurotransmitter called taurine in these energy drinks? They actually had to make some of them illegal because they're causing seizures and other activities of the brain to happen while these things are drinking it. To buy your child, once again, an energy drink, to me is actually almost abuse because it's knowingly a stimulant for their brain that can be very bad. Sodas, all these things, it's ridiculous. All right? Reduce sugar intake. Come on, any person on the planet knows that sugar is a stimulant. I love it how there's no evidence. You have no evidence for anything you talk about. If you guys understand just biochemistry and how insulin affects, or excuse me, how sugar affects insulin and cortisol, stuff like that, it's massively damaging to the brain. Where do they get off writing this crap? Where? Tell me how they justify it. And you're going to come tell me that my doctor said and research says, who researched it? And what's their validity to it that way? Second of all, chronic stress, parenting, environment. Yes, parents. I know it sounds funny, but sometimes your kids are going to be kids. Sometimes they need certain attention that you don't want to give them. I understand that. I get it. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes they're annoying. I get it. It doesn't mean they're sick. It doesn't mean those two little boys. So let me tell you the story. Let me tell you a story. So this mother, this single mother that I was talking to, and I'm using single mother because she was, happens with married couples too, just more common in single motherhood. It is. Child behavior is worse when there's not a man around. It always is. So therefore, guess what happened? I sat there and I was like, I took the thing away from him, I was talking to him, and I said, I cannot continue taking care of these boys until you go back to the doctor and show them what I just saw. And she's like, what? I said, your children basically sat for over a half an hour. They taught me in great detail. They talked to me like a mature adult when I asked them about what the game was and how they did this way. And they want to put them on a medication, and you're here for my opinion. Here's my opinion. Go back and actually do the same routine with the doctor in the office. Because it's my job to give you my opinion and my advice. That's the best for the child, for these two boys. So The story doesn't end well. It doesn't. It doesn't. So I said, and therefore, if you want to spend the money, I will run other testing and stuff like that, but I encourage you to go show your doctor this first. She was actually ticked. She was mad. You know, I love it how people want me to tell them what they want to hear. She was looking for some natural thing to change their behavior. And I said to him, I gave her the best advice. Do you know that happens? She even looked at me and she said, I should sue you for malpractice. I looked at her and said, go for it, because I would love to make a public thing about this. Now, it sounds funny. You think everything in my life is sunshine and roses from people? You think that when I give people advice like this, they're happy about it? I don't care if they're happy about it. I was looking at the future of our children. 50 million prescriptions just in 2011 alone. Something has to change. And therefore, she took them back to the doctor and put them on medication. And it's sad because there are people that came in here that know her and said, the kids are in rough shape. Parenting issue, you bet your ass. You bet your butt. You think that her parenting, because she couldn't take the advice of somebody that actually looked at it from a different perspective, because you were programmed your whole life, and because your doctor said, your doctor doesn't know what he's doing when he's giving people these kind of medications. He doesn't. If he does, prove it to me. Prove it to me. Somebody bring in some lab or some scan or some diagnostic that proves that they should be on a medication that they have no idea what it does to their body. Somebody show it to me. And if you cannot, then guess what? Do not come and say, my doctor said, because it makes no sense. So she was mad. She was mad. I get it. My opinion, like I told you, if you're offended, don't listen to my next statement. I don't believe she should have children in the first place. Kids are not convenient. They need leadership. They need growth. And I understand. And you say, well, Doc, your mom. Yes, my mom did parent me. My mom tried to do everything that way. I'm using the example on there because, once again, for the people that say it didn't exist for those two boys. And I've seen that. You think this is the only example? I can give you countless examples because a lot of people don't know this. There's a lot of stories that people don't know about my history. Do you understand that when I started practice, it wasn't female hormones? I was still figuring that stuff out with Christy. It was actually children. It was actually this. And it grew fast because, once again, people are trying to put kids on medication like crazy. My whole start of my practice for the first couple of years was this kind of care. And it's why I got to speak at big autism conferences. And it's why I wrote a ton of programs for the DAN program and all their programs, for example, that exist today that medicine still uses. They do. These programs that, for example, that I had an obsession about making sure that kids didn't have to go through what I did, because I did suffer psychologically. But that's not all of them. See, and that's the fight I fought. And I still fight it today. So the sad part of those kids, what's that kid's future like? What are those kids' futures like? What is your kid's future like? I had 4 kids. I have 4 kids. Trust me. It's a lot. Parents, I get it. I have 4 daughters that are so dramatically different, it would make your head spin. They're beautiful young girls. I have one girl that actually can sit and read for half an hour, and I have one that actually has to run around with a book in her hand. But you know all 4 of them? I have to yell at all 4 of them to get their homework done. You know, and their best subject is recess. And they're little girls. Do you understand? But you know what happens is I understand their beautiful uniqueness. I understand that there's nothing psychologically wrong with them. And I embrace their creativity. I embrace their aspect of being different from little boys and also other little girls. Can we do me a favor? Can you please stop comparing your kids to others, because that's what the school system does. And the school systems are programmed actually for behavioral little girls. It is. Young men, I actually feel sorry for you in today's world. I felt sorry for me, it hasn't changed because they want everybody to be the same. You want something is this? And I never really talk about this much, but you know what I'm saying is this? the suffering that I went through actually led to me to think the way I do today and the behaviors I did today. I always, sometimes when I was young, even when I was actually a teenager, and because you actually think something's wrong with you. You really do, because you have people saying something's wrong with you, something's wrong with you. I heard that. Didn't hear that from my parents. My mom and dad never spoke that way to me. Never spoke that way to me at all. I can honestly tell you, my dad had never spoke to me that way. My mom had never spoken to me that way. But my environment around me did. Teachers. Maybe that's why I hate school so much. It's really funny. I send my girls off to school every single day. You think I'm joking? I said, listen, be yourself and don't listen to the teacher. I do. Think I'm joking? I'm like, be yourself. Now, they're not disrespectful. They're not disrespectful. My children are not disrespectful. But I will not let an environment, and my kids don't go to public school though either. You say, I do not let an environment, happened once, no joke, happened once. And I went and talked to the teacher, me and my wife did, no joke. This happened 2 years ago. Think I'm joking? I have a daughter that's just like me. Her name is Callista. You know what's really funny? She is the funnest freaking thing to be around ever, and all my staff is laughing right now because they know her. You see that big smile, she's my third daughter. I watched a teacher in a Christian school, in a private school. It has a better curriculum. They have more of a classical education that way, more upbringing that way. But I watched a teacher talk to my daughter, and guess what happened? I took it head on with my wife. And you know what his excuse was? You think I'm joking? He's like, well, I have ADD and ADHD, so have some grace with me. And I'm like, you're the same teacher that said, I'm proud of failing kids. See, once again, bad environment. We took her out of school. We did. We homeschooled her for a year and watched her personality come back because her environment wasn't going to dictate who she was. Me and her mother are. Be very careful what you speak to your kids. Discipline them. Keep them well informed. Teach them respect. But as a young man, myself, understand your words can affect a child the rest of his life. Ask me, I'm right here. Ask me. So I want you to think about this. If you think about the stuff that I taught you today, healthcare is not this. Healthcare is not psychiatric drugs. Healthcare is not this. Healthcare is actually this. Healthcare is self-care. When you learn something, you know how to take care of yourself, and you know what direction to go. Do you understand? They talk about this all the time. 90+% of disease itself is preventable. By who? You, your self-care. It's why my practitioner program is going crazy right now, because we are launching come at the turn of the year, and our board's going crazy. We're doing awesome things. There's people coming out from all over the world and say, listen, you know what that really practitioner program does? It teaches you self-care. So if all you knew to actually understand a practitioner program, you could take care of yourself better and raise the kid and environment around you and everybody around you healthy-wise. Because what I'm trying to do with the Wellness Way all across the world, and all these doctors are trying to create a community of different thinkers. Because what happens is this, people are listening and they're not learning. It's time to start learning. It's why I will consistently break down these things and actually show it. And remember, you can say I disagree, but if you say I disagree, then you have to explain to me why. And it can't be emotion. See, because you watch people's emotional posts. I don't talk about emotion. See, there is no science behind everything that they give you drugs for. None. There's not one scientific thing that shows that those medications, for example, are good in any way. But they do cause psychosis. They do cause suicide. They do cause murder. It's really sad, isn't it? Because those are the effects they see from it that way. Stop listening and start learning. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn. You guys have a beautiful Saturday morning, and go enjoy those children, and do me a favor today. Speak life into them. God bless. Have a wonderful day. Hey, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single video or live stream. Also, share this video with a friend. Once again, thank you for watching.